The final is set. It was a crazy Saturday, especially obviously in that Houston win. We're going to preview Monday's meeting between Florida and Houston. I am Ninja with Tony Farmer, with John Henson. We'll have picks coming up here. Comment on who you guys think is going to win, Florida or Houston. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you do not do so already. The guys have done a fantastic job throughout the tournament. So one last preview to go. Let's look at the matchup. And as of Sunday morning, we're looking at Florida as a 1.5 point favorite here. The total has actually come down a full point this morning. It was 141.5 earlier at FanDuel. At the time of this video, down to 140.5. And that leans into something I want to discuss in a minute. But John, before we look ahead, just talk to me about what we saw Saturday. I mean, the comeback, the collapse, it was pretty epic. Duke up 14 with, a little over 8 minutes left, up 9 with 2:06 left, up 6 with 34 seconds left, up 3 with 25 seconds. The Blue Devils made 2 field goals in the final 13 minutes, 0 in the final 3. An incredible sell job by Duke. So as someone, who's been around the game as a player, as an analyst, were you impressed by that Houston comeback and win, or more so let down by Duke?
Yeah, I was impressed with Houston, but also let down by Duke. Man, in that arena, people were shocked. I mean, shell shocked. Like everyone, coaches, scouts, fans were literally like, what just happened? That was the energy in the arena because Duke gets the tee. They're up 7, I think, with 1:26 left. You think this is over, and it just snowballs. It gets out of hand. Proctor misses the free throws. Flag gets the questionable foul. It was. I was shocked, honestly. That was a all-time kind of upset, kind of because of the way the game was going. So I'm still kind of like, I woke up this morning like, what happened last night? Like, I'm still at that point because Duke was clearly the best team. Houston just kept fighting. And, I was at the press conference from Kelvin Sampson, and brilliant, right? He goes, I knew we could not beat them if we played into the 80s. This was going to have to be a high 60s, low 70s game for us to even have a shot. And as I was watching the game, I'm sitting back like, they need to speed it up. Duke's up 14 points. Like they need to start pressing. Houston did not do that because Sampson knew that if they were to play that type of game, they had no shot. So just a masterclass coaching by him, sticking to his guns, even not fouling, right? When they were up 6, Sharp comes down to hit the 3, like everyone we talked to was like, I would have panicked, I would have fouled, game over, what are we doing? So, hey, that's why you got to hire a great coach. I would have lost that game, 100%.
It is a great testament to what Sampson has done with this program in the last few years as well. But Tony, we talked a lot about KenPom and how favorable Duke's rating was and the metrics were, and that this might be the best Duke team of all time and all of that. But when you look at that KenPom rating, and I know hindsight is 2020, do you think that maybe there's a bit of, too many wins, too many big wins, maybe over not so impressive teams, over substandard competition, maybe an element of fraudulence in there with Duke?
I can't get that far to use that word fraud. I mean, you heard the post-game comments from Houston's coach after the game, basically saying, give us some respect. You've been giving Duke respect all season long. How about us? So I don't think Duke was overrated. I don't think Duke is a fraud. I think it was kind of an anomaly. I can't throw away a whole season of analytics for the last 8 or 9 minutes of that game. But I will say this, the one area, not the one, but one of the areas where Houston had an edge over Duke in KenPom is offensive rebounding numbers, right? You look at those numbers side by side, and Houston is a better rebounding team. And did they not get some big offensive rebounds in the last couple minutes of that game. There was that one possession. I think they had 3 offensive rebounds on, back to back to back, I believe, a couple 3-pointers, and they came up big on the boards late in that game. And I think that was a big difference in the game. In fact, it was 43-31 rebounding numbers in that game. Houston had 12 more boards.
So, Tony, tell me this then. I feel like there might be a similar, from an in-game betting point of view, I think we might be in store for a similar spot against the Gators with this Houston team. It's sort of the Houston DNA to be down, to claw your way back into a game, hit some big contested threes, hit some clutch free throws with a dude that shoots 60% from the stripe, and then scratch out a win. And, do you think this is something that you personally will be looking or considering for Monday night, maybe hitting some in-game betting spots?
Yeah, I'm always looking for live game betting opportunities. Foul trouble is the number one thing in college basketball that you should be paying attention to with live betting opportunities, especially with this Houston team. If some of their stars, a little shallower bench, if some of their stars get into foul trouble early, that's something to consider. But I think both of these teams really, Ninja, have shown that they can come from behind and that they can, when their back is against the wall, they can play tough. But Houston, especially with the way they won, you can't doubt them when they're down now for sure.
John, Walter Clayton, he pivoting to the Gators now. 34 against Auburn, 30 against Texas Tech in the Elite Eight, now minus 110 to win MOP. Has he been the best player in this tournament?
I think he's been the best player by far. First person to score back-to-back 40 or 30-point games since Larry Bird. So that should tell you how good he's been. And I'm going to take a quote from Kelvin Sampson's book. He did not play in the Toy Poodle League, what he called the ACC, which was kind of a shot. That kind of hurt my feelings. That hurt my feelings. I said, whoa. So, Walter Clayton's been that guy, and we talked about it, man. If you like the Gators, then his MOP was plus 365. I know a lot of people sitting on some big futures Florida Gator national championship tickets. So, and they hedged. Unfortunately, I think they hedged with Duke. So now it's about to get real sweaty for them.
John, I got a question for you real quick, if you don't mind, about Clayton. Do you think Florida seemed a little too reliant on him at the end? I mean, we know they have other weapons on this team. We saw that all season long. What I witnessed in the last couple minutes of that game, it seemed like nobody wanted to take a shot. Let's give the ball to Clayton. Condon struggled the last couple games, at least offensively. Richard has struggled 3 of 12 in his last 2 games. Do you worry about them being a little too reliant on him?
Yeah, I think early on they relied on his heroics. To keep them kind of in it. But down the stretch, I thought, he got his stuff within the scheme. He wasn't really like forcing it. Like, he got a couple layups, he got a foul. So down the stretch, I think, they played pretty well as a team. I think that's why they won. When I saw Florida play, though, and then I saw Duke early, I was like, oh my God, I hope Duke wins. I'm going to put the house on Duke because the line's probably not going to be too long, too short or whatever. It's going to be probably pretty short. I'm sorry. So Houston makes it interesting. I want to kind of actually take from what Coach Campson said and say, hey, look, we were 34-3 in the Big 12. Well, Florida won the best conference ever. So, I may have a slight lean towards Florida because Coach Sampson made me think about some things with his slight of my ACC.
Let me ask you this then, John. If there are bettors out there, and I'm sure there are, thinking about betting Houston, is it smarter maybe to just bet LJ Cryer for MOP, considering he's plus 175? He's their guy. Would that be a move for anyone that's looking to bet Houston?
Yeah, I think that's the play. You get better value. He'll probably going to get that award, barring a disastrous game. So, yeah, if you think Houston's going to win, but also I say, that's even more of a message from Vegas, right? Like, they may have that line as -1.5, +1.5, but if he's a 375 and just had 30, they might be trying to tell you something.
I mentioned, the total earlier, and I know, Tony, you're not typically a huge totals better. You'll dabble, but talk to me about the number here. Like I said, it was 141.5, just a couple hours ago. Now 140.5. My knee-jerk reaction is that it's too high. Even listening to what John was saying about Calvin Sampson's presser after the game, keeping that game in the 60s. So do you think between the possibility of, maybe a slowed down tempo, some nervous players on the floor for the first little bit, Tony, do you think this is more of a game that does see both these teams in the 60s when everything's said and done?
Yeah, I don't have a bet on the total myself. This Houston defense, though, guys, it's got to be in the back of your mind if you're thinking totals or team totals. They held Duke to their second lowest scoring margin of the season. They held Tennessee to 50 points, their lowest scoring output of the season. This Houston defense is for real. And so that's got to be in the back of your mind when betting these totals or team totals. I want to ask John a question along these lines, though, because I've heard some people say that they feel like there's been some softer rims in San Antonio. And if that's true, that's an argument for maybe taking the over in a game like this. So, John, I'm wondering, do players talk about that in pregame shooting? Like, oh, these rims feel a little softer? Or is this just something that, sports bettors and sports fans talk about that players don't really get into?
I don't think we don't necessarily talk about how soft the rims are. When I played, we were running fast breaks, so we liked hard rims because guess what? We're getting layups, so harder shooting gym. So Cameron Indoor naturally had softer rims. Carolina, we tightened the rims. So to give you a little banter, but I'm going to be honest with you. I went to all the practices. Every team was shooting the hell out the ball. Milos Uzan was shooting the ball well. Cryer was shooting the ball well. Sharp. Florida shot the ball well as a team. Even Duke, Knipple. I don't think because of Coach Sampson, the way he described it, hey, we do not have the talent to go blow for blow with Duke. I think this Florida team, they are not as concerned from a talent perspective. And both teams, from what I saw up close, this is a nice gem for them. They're shooting the ball. I mean, look at the shots Walter Clayton Jr. hit. But then my basketball mind just goes back to if both these teams shot like that on Saturday, do they shoot like that on Monday? It's just basketball is such a weird sport, man. It's a law of averages sports. I don't care if it's Luka Doncic or it's Walter Clayton Jr. There's no way you're shooting over 50% from three 2 games in a row. Yes, it could happen, but the chances are slim, right? There's a reason that teams shoot around 40%, 38, 40% as a team, and that's a really good shooting team. So I don't know if Houston, I would leave the total alone, lean over. But, I think the line's short enough where you don't really have to play with totals. You just pick who you think's going to win, and you go from there because you just never know. And then also you have Houston to boot. So it's a tough. I mean, like I said, Duke losing made this a lot tougher of a bet, man. Just from everything, because I don't think anyone thought that was going to happen. So you could probably go live. Like for instance, Duke. We were in the chat because I talked about last show. I said, hey, if you think Duke's going to win, take their team total over. They're sitting at 54 with 12 minutes left. Me and my boys were like, that was free. Mm-hmm. And then down the stretch, it was just like they couldn't score, right? So, and they lost. They didn't get to 7 and they lost. That's how Houston wins.
Let's get into it there. Let's finish it with the picks then. And I'll start with you, John Henson. What are you looking at to bet this thing for Monday night?
I'm going to go Florida money line. I just think Houston, they were down the whole game, but this is a Duke team that wins games by double digits all the time. And they just played the perfect game, the perfect game plan. I haven't looked at the box score, but I think they shot around 50% from 3. So I'm more so fading Houston to come back to earth than picking on Florida. And then I'll probably save some units for a live bet as well, because I think this game is going to be close. And you know, you could have got Florida plus 4.5 at the half, at halftime, and I love that. So potentially a halftime play could be into play if I could get points with either side, depending on the flow of the game.
And then Tony, bring us home here. Last pick for the 2025 March Madness tournament. What are you looking at? What are you going to bet?
Yeah, John and I each had Florida coming into this tournament in our brackets to win it all. He's sticking with Florida. I'm jumping ship. I'm going to take Houston. I certainly like your guys' angle with the LJ Cryer money line. That is much better value. I agree. But if I got to put a bet on the money line or the spread or the total in this game, I like Houston on the money line here. They're playing their best basketball right now. I mentioned a couple guys earlier for Florida who are not playing their best basketball right now. Houston is playing their best. What they've done throughout the season, they have 4 losses, guys. Let's zoom out a little bit. 4 losses for Houston. 3 of them have been in overtime. They haven't lost a game of regulation since November. This team, what they've done in the tournament recently, according to Bart Torvik, #1 adjusted defensive efficiency since the tournament began. Florida is around 25, 30 or so. So they're playing their best basketball right now. Florida's playing well, but they're not playing their best. Give me Houston on the money line.
I like Florida, but it could change. I'm gonna be honest with you. I got a few shows I'm doing today, and I'm gonna talk to some guys, and I could flip, man. But upon initial, now I'm gonna tell you this: if this line gets to the point, like I say, like this, if Florida starts off strong and we get Houston 3.5, 4, I think as a bettor you gotta hammer that. So it'll be interesting.